And we are live with the Live Reality Games podcast. My name is Nathan, and I'm back covering the, what is it, 11th episode of Survivor Boston? No, it's like 8th episode. This is exciting. We're knee deep in this season. This is an awesome college-based Survivor show, Survivor live reality game, and we are knee deep in the jury. And I'm excited to talk about this. And here as a recurring substitute for Jacob, we have Austin. Austin, how are you doing?
I'm good, Nathan. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to have you here.
I'm always happy to be here. Like you said, this has been such a good season. So excited that it's been this good. Sad that it's winding down, but it's getting more crazy each episode. So all good stuff.
Yes, new outcomes every time.
Yeah.
And as a special guest this week, we have Brian Roque from the first season of Survivor Boston. Brian, welcome to the Live Reality Games podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited. I have been fully immersed in this season because I live with Jacob and Charlie. So to be able to talk about it and to have them watch A Floor Below is so exciting. So yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and as always, we have our special guest, the most recent eliminee. We are, if you don't want to be spoiled, get out now, because we're about to spoil you. And we are so sad, but so excited to talk to Anna from this season. Anna, how are you?
I'm great. I'm sad to be here so soon, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are sad that you are here as well, Austin and I think Jacob all rated you really highly in our preseason predictions. We thought you would be going all the way to the end.
I mean, I didn't, so.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go back to the beginning? How did you get involved with Survivor Boston?
That's a funny story, actually, because I was a freshman when I, joined Survivor. And so it was like the second week of school. We had all the big common auditions for like all of the shows because I'm a theater student. And I didn't get into anything. I was like young and I had chosen a new monologue and it was horrible and it was awful. And I was like, I have nothing to do. And then one of my friends, I don't even know who it was. It might have been Brady. Oh my gosh, it might have been Brady. I think Brady, because he was in one class with me because he was also a freshman, was like, you should go out for Survivor. I'm going out for Survivor. And I was like, what's Survivor? And he was like the show. And I said, what's Survivor? and so he basically explained it. And I was like, sure, I have nothing else to do. So I went out and I went to the interview because we had to go through a few interviews, I think. And they were like, so how do you think you'd play this game? And I was like, I don't know what it is. And they're like, you've never seen Survivor? And I said, no. And they're like, interesting. Okay, bye. And I was like, I'm not getting into this game. And then I did. And I was like, oh, I got in because I don't know what's going on and they need someone to go home first. So I walked in like third week of college, knowing nobody. I didn't know anybody there. Brady like a tiny bit. I had never seen an episode of Survivor. I grew up overseas a little bit. So I like really didn't know what Survivor was. I knew like they voted people off of islands. And I didn't know how we were going to do that in a studio in Paramount. So like I didn't know what to expect. And then I ended up here 3 years later.
That's crazy that you knew Brady. So you didn't know anyone else in the cast?
Nope.
And you just knew Brady because you were both freshmen, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. And he used to be in the same major as me, but he's since switched, I believe.
Okay. That would have been a crazy alternate timeline if you and Brady had been on the same trial. Yeah. So right off the bat, we have the Temple of Risk challenge, and you come out on top along with Madison.
Mm-hmm.
What was going through your head? Did you? I mean, you straight up you wanted to play, of course. And then you won. What was going through your head through all that?
I think I knew that I was at a disadvantage because I was a freshman and I knew nobody. So I was like, if I put myself out there, maybe they'll be like, oh, she's got game or something. I don't know. And so I decided to do it. I'm a Sagittarius. I just go for most things. And I didn't think I would win. And once I did, I was like, oh no, I don't know anything. And they're like, you're the captain. And I was like, oh no, I don't know anything. And yeah, I was surprised. I was happy, obviously. I was like, oh, look at me. But once they kind of deemed us like captain and we had something to do and we had to pick the team, I was thoroughly stressed. And then I stayed thoroughly stressed for 2 months throughout the whole game.
Yeah, so
that sounds accurate.
just give a quick shout out. We have Jacob sharing his love for Anna and Brian.
Hi, roommate Jacob.
And Brandon in the chat as well. So this is really interesting. And one more. Lauren.
That's my roommate. She's walking in there.
So this makes it really interesting because your first pick is Austin. Did you have a reason for that, for picking Austin? Is just because was he known at all?
I mean, take it with a grain of salt because this was 2 years ago. So I'm trying to get into mini Anna's head, but I believe I chose him because he was in my major and he was a senior. And I was like, okay, I can be like, we're actors. We take the same classes sometimes. I can be your friend. Also, you're a senior. You know everybody and you know everything. And I know nothing. So I think that's what I was going for. Also, he didn't intimidate me in the way that other players who were older and knew things intimidated me. He just seemed really cool. And he just seemed like someone I could like kind of be like, Dad, help, in a way that I feel like other people really scared me. Because I think a pattern that I went through over it was just being scared of a lot of players. And I wasn't scared of him. So I thought he seems really nice and also large and in charge and feels like he knows what he's doing, where I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, if you think you're kind of instantly on the outs, find someone who would take you under their wing. And Austin seems like a great pick for that.
Mm-hmm. He's super cool. I talked to him only a little bit during the game because we never ended up on the same team. But he was always so nice, especially after the game when we see each other like in the hallway. And I was like, oh my gosh, hi.
So why did you not pick Brady to be on your team?
No, I did not. Nothing against Brady at all. But I think because he was another freshman, I was like, it'd be weird to like choose a freshman as a freshman and then have like the 2 freshmen like plus Anissa, we were the only 3 freshmen, be like in cohorts. I feel like I thought that we already had a relationship that I might be able to profit off of without me having him as my first pick, where I wanted to choose someone who I needed like help from as my first pick. I believe that's what I was thinking.
And I feel like that could have had like the Swetha Austin effect if you had picked Brady and then they're like, well, they're freshmen, they must be best friends and know each other from. Which
I'm glad it didn't happen because I literally did not know Brady at all. So if people were like, they're working together, I'd be like, who are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, Brian, you had an opening challenge on your season of Survivor Boston, and you did something a little bit different than Anna. You went for you had the option of either going for a individual advantage or tribe advantage, and you went for the tribe advantage, the safer option, you might say. Why didn't you go for a risky choice right off the bat?
So it's funny because we filmed both of those challenges in the same room, and so for me, like I filmed that first challenge for season 4, and then 2 years prior, I was like competing in like that first challenge in that same room. So it was like really weird full circle moment for me. But I happened to be standing in a spot. So when they were explaining the challenge, like I'm a Survivor super fan. So I was scanning the room like all around being like, okay, any piece of paper, any sort of like thing with a string on it. And I look to my left while I'm standing in the line and I see like a little piece of paper and I'm like, well, I mean, it's right there. And so I'll like go for the team thing when I saw it. And so I immediately found it. I wasn't sure if I had to share it with anyone, so I like weirdly stuck it in my pocket. And then Jacob was like, "Whoever found the tribe advantage, you should tell people that you found it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so yeah, like it helped though too because I think with the first season in particular, a lot of people didn't know what Survivor was either, and so people in their heads were like, oh, well, Brian's always going to be for the team, which, yes, I was always.
Oh my gosh, we have in the chat Sabrina from Big Brother Columbus and the Penthouse fame. Hi, Sabrina.
Love you.
Okay, so we get into the first round, and you are basically immediately in danger, Anna, of going home. What went wrong? Is it just because you missed the breakfast?
Yeah, apparently. I had a callback for something else because I had gotten a callback for a different show. So literally after the first challenge when we lost, I was like, sorry guys, I gotta go. Like I literally ran to a callback like we were in like workout gear because we've been running. It had been raining, and I like ran to the callback, and everyone was already like doing something actory in the room, and I like burst in, and so they all went out to breakfast, and I guess that's what happened. And I mean, I bet it also had something to do with the fact that I had stolen Madison from her team, because of like the whole Switch thing, where it was like, now you can choose the Switch. And I remember watching with my friends, a month ago or whatever when it came out, and they're like, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "I honestly can't. I don't know why." I think I was sitting there and I was like, "Well, she's gonna take the people that I want, which is gonna hurt me. So the only way to hurt her is to make sure she doesn't actually get the people that she wants."
That's the most petty thing I've ever heard, and I love it.
For someone who hasn't seen Survivor, I feel like that's a very astute strategy on your end.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I played that.
I wouldn't have done
Survivor because the first night that my season aired, like episode 1, all of my friends and all my roommates are roommates. It's COVID. We don't hang out. I just want to say that all my roommates are watching it in our like living room area, and right afterwards they were like, "Wait, but you've never seen Survivor?" And I was like, "No." And so we started watching Survivor, and I've seen Kage-yan and Heroes versus Villains. So those are the only two I've seen now. But watching it now, I mean, I'm 3 years older, so there's also that. But watching it now, I'm like, if I had just been a little smarter and like thought to research this, it would have been so different. Because the whole thing, I was walking around like, don't know what I'm doing. Where am I? It's Survivor. Like what? And so it's crazy to think how I would have acted differently had I seen the show and had I like known about idols and known how alliances work. But honestly, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I probably would have gotten so in my head that I would have been out anyway, like first.
So how did you find yourself in that main group with Maddie, Swatha, Zach, and Finn?
Core five.
it.
But I found myself there because Maddie came to me that like first weekend, and she was like, "Listen, Madison's got it out for you." And I was like, "Who? I barely know these people." And it was really like, Maddie didn't have to do that. She could have just really easily not said anything, and I wouldn't have known that I should be meeting with people and talking to them. I literally don't think I made one meeting that first week, because I was like, I don't know. I look like I'm playing dumb on there, and it's just because I'm dumb. But I guess I was like, she didn't have to do that, so I kind of looked to her as not like a mentor, but as, okay, well, Maddie obviously had some kindness for me, and knows how to play the game, because we ended up getting Madison out and it worked. So I should go with her. And then it ended up that she was part of that like little alliance, and leaving Carly, Max, and then ultimately Marlon kind of in the minority. So I really think I ended up there because of Maddie, but I stayed because of Zach. And I will talk about Zach for as long as I live. I'm in love with him. He's my favorite human in the world.
Yeah, we can bring in this comment, Lauren saying, "Petty icon Anna."
Thank you, Laura.
Giovanna Mariano, the fact that you're alive is a miracle.
It really is. It really is.
And
the alternate universe where I get out first episode is not surprising at all. It makes a lot of sense.
It looked like it was gonna happen for a second.
It did. I was watching it and I was like, oh no. It's like, and I've been there. I was almost first out as well. And like, it's the way that sometimes, you get someone who is like, hey, listen, they're saying it's you. We're not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for Maddie for doing that. I don't really know why she did it. I do think it's because she probably saw me as someone easier to control than Madison, because Madison made big moves out the gate. And she was like, this girl is just chilling. I can make sure she does what I want, which ultimately affected my vote later on. But I'm glad she did it. I'm very grateful to her, and I love you, Maddie, always.
So this question comes from Mark. He asks, why didn't you automatically vote off Maddie at the merge instead of Hallie? We saw a confessional of you knowing you were on the bottom of that alliance. Why did you choose to stick with Zach's alliance even knowing you were at the bottom?
Interesting. I guess I really just I knew I was at the bottom, but I didn't think I was at the bottom like in a dangerous way yet. I didn't think I'd come to the point where they were looking to shave off the bottom. I thought it was like, okay, I'm not safe in this alliance to the end, but I'm not in immediate danger yet, so I just will continue to stay with them. And I really did trust Swetha. If we talk about the episode where she goes home, I will get emotional. I really did trust Swetha. And then, of course, Zach is like such a good friend of mine that I thought it was best to stay there at that moment. I guess I didn't think I was in immediate enough danger to like have to act.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were even in a decent, I mean, not a great position, but an okay position even going into this episode. You had an idol.
Nathan, we have to talk about it.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's rewind. Let's talk about the pre-merge a little bit. And because you have your core five, but then you have after Madison is voted out, you still have Max and Carly, and then Marlon joins your tribe after that. And what are the initial what are those initial rounds? You don't have to eliminate anyone else until swap, but how did you approach Marlon coming into the tribe at that point?
I reached out to him pretty immediately once he officially joined Fatia, and I was like, hey, you just got here. I want to reach out. I want to be there for you catch you up to speed. And then it like didn't work. It was very weird. Marlon and I also love Marlon. But Marlon and I had a very odd relationship with the whole thing because we had like some sort of bond and trust because I like reached out to him, but never actually enough to make a difference because he was always going to side with Max and Carly. And I don't know why he did that. I would be really curious to see that because I think I was in a good enough position, at least in the beginning with Core 5, or like an irrelevant enough position where I could have been like, hey, Marlon's talking to me. We should bring him in. And then Max and Carly will just go off one by one. I don't really know why he chose to situate himself in the minority with them. Worked out for him, apparently, so far. But it's like, Marlon and I always had a strange thing where like, we'll talk to each other and we'll tell each other things and we'll believe each other, but then we just won't do it. We'll just kind of drift apart afterwards. So I wish my relationship with Marlon throughout the game had been better. I wish it had worked out better because I liked the moments that we were working together a lot.
Yeah, because we didn't see much of it, and you even in your swap tribe, we didn't see much of what was going on your swap tribe. We saw that you were close with Zach, but Marlon was there too. What was that whole tribe dynamic like?
Swap tribe. All right.
So you had Jackie, Anissa, Hallie.
Oh yeah.
Zach,
okay.
Marlon, and you.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I did talk to Marlon, but I knew at that point that he was pretty in it with Carly. And so I don't think we talked like a ton. Also, we didn't end up voting anyone off because we were winning those challenges. So we didn't talk much at all. And I was terrified of Anissa. I didn't trust her at all. She scared me. She had this weird idol thing. I just wanted nothing to do with any of that. And like, if I was a smarter player, maybe I would have tried to have something to do with that. But I was just so lost in it that I was like, I don't know. And then Jackie, I love. Jackie's a queen, and I love her so much. And I did get a little bit more wrapped up in her, where I'm like, because she became kind of this swing-ish, where we never really knew what she was going to do. So we were always hoping that she was going to go with us. And then in the end, in my vote, she did not. And then Hallie, I think I just I love Hallie. She's one of my majors as well. She's my major, a crazy lady. But I didn't expect her to make it as far, if I'm being honest. I thought that she would be one of the first ones that we got rid of.
If you had gone to tribal, who would have gone home from that swap tribe?
Probably, I would say me or Zach, because I think that Anissa would have had Hallie. I think at that point, were Anissa,
And-
Carly, and Marlon working together?
No, not until the merge.
Not yet. Oh, okay. Well, then I don't. I
You
don't know.
technically had Jackie. There was a 3-3 split as far as your original tribes go, but we never got to see that play out.
Yeah, we might have been able to get Jackie in on it, and maybe Hallie. But I know that Anissa probably. I mean, I didn't know this back then. But Anissa probably would have really fought to keep Hallie because she could count on her as a vote. That's something that I think is really interesting watching it back, at least for me, but we know that I'm just got blinders on apparently. But at least for me, it was so unapparent how much Anissa was running the game. And like watching it back, it is very apparent how much effort and effect and sway she has on a lot of people. And so there are lots of times my friends are like, why are you not voting her out? And it's like, we didn't know that she was running a lot of it. So I can't say who I think would go home, but I believe it probably would have been Hallie if we would have been able to get Jackie in on that.
That would have been interesting. I wish we could have seen it a little bit, but
yeah, it's fascinating because I think the off days in Survivor Boston hit different. Like when you're playing and you win a challenge, that's like, I just passed in my homework. Like I just passed in my essay. Like I don't have to worry about this anymore. And whereas I feel like a lot of other like online games or like in Survivor, like the show, when you're there and it's like you're in it, I think with the big difference, I guess, with Survivor Boston is a lot of the times, like back in season 1, I forget about like, it's like, oh, if we win the challenge, it's like, oh, cool, I can focus on this other thing that people are trying to get me to do. So it's fascinating from sort of that stance with college survivors in general of like the strategy, like pre-swap and the merge because of stuff like that.
That's true. You know, if I remember thinking, if I win a challenge, I don't want to talk to anybody. I can go like do that essay that's due, you know, and I think that was something that probably hindered me is because I fully just would sometimes drop out of it and be like, cool, we won, see you next week. And while other people were talking and planning and, you know, but winning challenges hits different. It really is a different feeling.
Yeah, to that end, like playing the game as a freshman has to be incredibly difficult. Like, I mean, when I played, I was a senior, so it was a bit different. But what was it like for you, like new school, like college, getting acclimated, and being a theater major? I know absolutely nothing about that. So just like, what was your experience like trying to juggle two very stressful things at once?
It was nuts. It was a really nuts time. And especially as I'm watching it back and realizing how much people know each other and thinking if I played now as a junior, how many people in this school I would know already just implicitly, especially because we go to a pretty small school. And it was kind of rough because I would get very overwhelmed with the game outside the game because there is no outside the game in college Survivor because you're meeting like in between classes in random study rooms or like they're coming over to your dorm and then like in the middle of homework I turn around and I have this conversation and it permeated my whole life.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when I got out, I wasn't gonna tell my friends that I got out because I wanted them to like not know, but I was so honestly relieved that I got out that I went home and I was like, I'm done, we're good, it's fine, everything's better now. And it's not like I didn't love playing it because it was a fun time and I loved all the people, but I started to get paranoid in like my normal life where like a friend from class would come up to me and be like, you want to meet and do this project? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. And my brain would be like, they're also meeting with that other person.
Can't say the wrong thing.
I don't think I ever got that paranoid, but I do remember like I'm in Japanese class. I'm trying to focus and my phone's blowing up because my allies are meeting. And I'm just like, guys, I can't.
Literally. Like when you're on the island in Real Survivor, it's like, that's your life. Your life is Survivor. But it's weird when they collide. It's very odd.
So like it's props to you for doing that. That's freshman. Seriously.
Yeah, it's It's funny you say that too, Anna, because I feel like in season 1, Jacob and Charlie, we were freshmen during that point, and the way that they cast the show is they sent emails to freshmen they knew being like, hey, do you want to do this like at all? Like, is this something that like interests you?
Wow.
And like, I was like, yes, like immediately. And so the majority of the other players that season, like not only were like freshmen, but were kind of like, I don't really know Survivor, but in a weird way, it's cool because like you kind of like encompass like the beginning of what Survivor Boston was, and we're able to kind of incorporate it into season 4, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Yeah, that is cool. I wouldn't. I mean, I would. I was gonna say I wouldn't advise other freshmen do it, but I would, especially people who are different from me and who know what they're doing and who like competition. I really walked into that interview. I said, I don't like lying. I don't like competition. I have never seen Survivor. And Charlie and Jacob said, perfect, throw her in.
The freshmen this season have been awesome, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there was you. There's Anissa as a freshman, right?
Yeah.
And Brady. Brady's a freshman. Can we imagine this season without Brady?
Oh my god!
No, he's a staple.
I don't think I've ever seen a cast with freshmen in it, just like any cohort of freshmen that were like this sharp.
Okay.
And so, like, it's just so fun, especially like watching, because like freshmen are like 18, and like thinking about like when I played, I was like 21, and like dealing with the issues of being, a senior. It's such a different world almost, and yet we're living in the same world. So it's just so crazy.
It really is weird to think back to Anna. It's also so embarrassing to see myself. I went through like a whole learning curve of the first like 3 episodes where I would just sit there with my friends like, can we? Oh, I don't want to. Why does your hair look like that? Why does your hair?
There's the reason I wear my hair up these days. Just leave it at that.
Speaking of freshmen, Phoebe shouts out Queen Anissa.
Queen.
So your game really starts to wake up at the merge. It really starts to take a different turn, and so we have that first vote where it's really your faction of the 5, and then versus the original. Oh gosh, I'm terrible with 5 names. Original Katai. And and basically it's whether you go after Hallie, who is talking about quitting, or Finn flips and targets Maddie. What did you have any idea what was going down at the merge?
I did. I knew that Maddie was a target. I don't know if they showed this part of confessional or with meetings, but Marlon did come to me and say, "We're voting Maddie. You should vote with us." And this is when I come into like. Marlon and I would tell each other things, but then we would like drift away, and then we come back together, and it was a very weird dynamic. And I was like, Maddie, what? Like Hallie should be good. She's just kind of here, and she's lovely and hilarious, and she makes the game better. But also, like, she's been expressing wants to leave, and that means she should probably go. And so I did tell him, if it goes to tie, because we worked out all the numbers, if it goes to a tie, I'll vote Maddie. And I think I did that because I recognized that she was dangerous, and I recognized that, okay, she kept me around not because she thought I was a valuable team player, like because she thought she could probably control me, which she did for a while. And I was kind of my way of being like, I'll stay with you, Marlon, and I'll do what you want if it goes to a tie, which I didn't really think it would, because I voted Hallie that first round. I was like, Hallie's going home. And then when it went to tie, when Finn flipped, I was like, I love the side-by-side of me holding up Hallie like, yeah, Hallie's going home. And then me holding up Maddie like, oh, no, he's good. I look so distraught. And I think I did it because I knew she was a threat. But I think that was my mistake in her vote, sometimes in Finn's vote, but like Finn was all over the place. I identified some of my allies as threats, but then I targeted them too quickly. Where it's like, it might have been good to know they were threats and get some of old Katai out first, so we weren't so outnumbered. and then go for like the threatening Fatia, just so I would have been in that core 5 a little longer. But even with that decision, I mean, Finn was already on the outs trying to get in with everyone else. I love that clip of him, of all of us, the 5 of us, or the 4 of us now, because Maddie's gone, in the next episode, being like, what happened? And me being like, I'll own up to it, guys. I voted Maddie. Here's why. And then being like, I understand.
Yeah, I almost voted for Maddie.
Thing. Exactly.
Everyone almost did.
I said it in the confessional, but Zach and I were like whapping each other under the table. We were like, he's lying.
That must have been a treat.
It was crazy. We were like, yeah, Finn, I believe you.
So for these Temple of Risk games, we haven't seen them in the last few episodes, but you basically skipped any of the other ones pre-merge, but you did play in the merge one. So 2-part question. Why didn't you play in any of the other pre-merged games, Temple of Risks, and why did you choose to play at the merge one where where you had questions there? I think it was.
It was the Boston Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't play in any of the other ones pre-merge because I felt slightly safe in my core 5. I was like, this works. We're working. And also, Temple of Risk always happened at a very weird time of the day. They'd be like, meet at 3 in Colonial and we'll do a thing. I'd be like, I got something at 3. What do you mean? So strictly logistical, there was probably a little bit of that. But I also think I felt pretty secure in that up until merge. And then merge happened and I was like, damn, so this is real now. I got to the point where everyone says you just want to get to merge. I was like, okay, I got there. And now I really don't know what's going to happen. And so I was like, is this my time to like assert some form of dominance again and be like, I'm still in this. I still got game. And then they're like, this is a Q&A about Boston. And I'm like, lovely. I moved here a month ago. What? So they said that and I was like, there's no way. There's no way I'm winning this.
Although if I remember, you did pretty well in that, right?
I did better than I thought. I think I got second.
Yeah.
Big H one?
Yeah.
Yes. And he and Anissa pulled the ball.
Yes, I have it written down.
Yeah, okay. So in this game, it was really interesting because like Anissa and Big H are kind of playing you, and you start targeting Hallie when you get things right rather than Anissa or Big H. But
yeah, I don't know what that's about.
Because you had a run at it.
Did y'all like see Anissa and Big H? Because like you were saying, how it was like a lot more obvious watching it that Anissa's running it.
I mean, it's so much more obvious because we see their conversations now watching it. No clue.
Wow.
For one, I was on Fatia for half of it, and they were on Katai, so I like didn't even know they existed. Basically, I like saw them once a week. But once merge happened, no, I had no idea. I mean, I thought they probably were close because they were old Katai, but the fact that they were like this from the beginning, I've been watching it with my friends. Like, oh my god, we should have. Oh my gosh, how did we not? It's embarrassing to watch back and be like, we let that slide.
Yeah.
We let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, Phoebe says best kept alliance there ever was.
It's true.
Yeah.
I agree with it. Because it's also funny because like Zach and I would walk into meetings and be like, babe, I love it. Oh my god. And then Lisa and Big H would have all those interviews like, we would like get each other's names wrong so that people wouldn't know that we were working together. It was just like, I didn't even think about that. I was just busy having a good time with my good friend.
So I want to talk about this fallout from that merge vote because it seemed like that really reset the game somewhat, reset where everyone was. And so when you were trying to figure everything out, did you even bother trying to figure it out? Did you have any idea where the Zach vote came from?
I had no idea about the Zach vote. I forgot even that happened. It made me so sad to watch the clip of Zach being like, and Anna betrayed me. I was texting him the whole time like, no, babe, I love you. But it was definitely a little bit of work to get back in with Zach. I mean, he forgave me pretty immediately once I figured out what I did. And I never lied to him. I didn't really lie to most people in this game. So I was like, these are my reasons and this is what I did. And I feel bad about it. So it wasn't hard getting back in with Zach, and then Swetha was kind of part of that. But I think that it did leave a little bit of room for distrust, which I think is why Swetha didn't tell us about her idol like clue that she got. And yeah, we figured out the numbers. We figured out that Finn had flipped because I knew that I hadn't voted her first. So it had to have been Finn. And so there was a little bit of figuring out going, but there's also just a little bit of like, who the hell knows what happened last week? Let's just try to not die next week. And then we were all like, okay, Finn flipped.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, I'm curious from your perspective, how did that Finn vote end up unanimous when it was looking like, the two sides were, after this big flip, kind of potentially more cemented?
I think it ended up unanimous because unlike me, who flipped but is a little bit not predictable, but just less like erratic, no one knew what Finn was going to do. No one ever knew what Finn was going to do. He had a core alliance with us. He was completely talking to the other side. We both knew that he was talking to both sides. And he was smart enough to like maybe pull it off if we didn't check him in it. Like, he was too dangerous to keep around and be like, okay, we'll keep him around, but we know he's a double agent. It's like, no. If we keep him around, he's going to pull something smart and one of us is going to go home. So I think we decided we'd rather just have trust in the three of us of like, we know what's going on, and get this wild card out of here who very easily could be a vote for the other side. But once again, I don't know if that was a smart move because no, I think Finn was a smart move. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's complicated because you guys were down in numbers, I think. Fatia had a 7-4 advantage. And right now, after your vote out, it's Katai has the advantage.
Yeah.
So
we really got out a lot of big Fatia. And I think that's because there were major players on Fatia, not major players on Katai, obviously. Now. But there were such major players on Fatia, especially in that core alliance, that like when they became scary, we were like, get them out. And that might have been jumping the gun a little bit in hindsight. And
do you think it could be a little bit too of like people were looking for an easy vote after like the Hallie-Maddie split, like thinking that Hallie is going to be like unanimous, or thinking like that Maddie is going to be unanimous too?
Yeah, that could definitely be it. My friends keep asking, how is Hallie still here? Not as a diss to Hallie, just as like she keeps expressing ideas of like not wanting to be here. And I think I remember distinctly thinking that she would just quit. That like there would come to a point where she'd be like, you know what, I don't want to play this anymore. Especially because I didn't see any of her backstage like confessional stuff of being like, I do want to be here. I just kind of saw her in tribals and in challenges where she was like, it's not my thing anymore. And so I think we didn't really worry about getting Hallie out because we were like, she's probably just going to leave. So we might as well use these voting opportunities to get out really big players if Hallie's just going to walk away. And then she didn't. And here we are.
And you had a really good question to Hallie. I forget what tribal it was. I was rewatching everything today, so it's all over. When you ask her, like, if you are saying you don't want to be here, why are you still like voting? I think it was the Maddie votes. Like, why were you in on the Maddie vote and voting?
Yeah.
And then she says, like, I genuinely didn't think Maddie was going home. I thought I was the only one. How much of that like did you believe?
I didn't believe any of that. No. I definitely thought that she was in on it with them, and I was getting annoyed because I was like, there are people who aren't here anymore, like Maddie, like Austin, like these big players who wanted to be here. And the fact that she was expressing this, because I, in my private life with my friends, sometimes would be like, I don't know, maybe I just shouldn't be playing this anymore. It's stressing me out. But I would never like go and express an opinion of I don't want to be here. And that was just kind of just like, well, then why are you here? And why are you fighting to stay here and kick someone out if you're actively not wanting to be here? And that's not exactly fair because I think she did want to be here. It was just she was the most hesitant in a room full of pretty much sharks to be there. Yeah. Like we were all trying to like do it. And then she
I remember
that question. That made me mad. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, no. It's fascinating because season 1 we had a similar situation with Izzy, because like from the jump she was like, I'm in this for Lexi, like there's no other reason for like me to be playing this game. And then I was like, oh, interesting. And so then like from there it kind of becomes a thing of like, well, these types of players, it's like, either way, it's like there are two ways to look at it, of like either A, like everyone just kind of decides to write their name down, or B, we kind of take them along, which in essence has like happened in season 1 and in season 4, because with Izzy in particular, she was out like so outwardly for Lexi to be in the game, and I love and adore both of them. And so then at Final 5, when we voted off Lexi, Izzy basically like threw in the towel and like made right to her agreement from the beginning. And so it's interesting to kind of like see the comparisons between this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that type of player is great to have on your side, but if they're not on your side in your pocket, then they are an obstacle.
Yeah. And it felt weird to not like waste a vote on her, because is rude and not true. Yeah. But when there are such large players to get out, like Finn, like Maddie, like Swetha, like the potential of getting out like Big H or Anissa, it felt odd to have a whole week just to get out someone who doesn't really want to play and has never won a challenge. Mm-hmm. But you're right, her staying there is a huge advantage for the people who have her on their team, like a huge advantage. So it was messy and it was dirty, and we didn't really know how to handle that situation, and I don't think we handled it well.
I almost think it's risky to keep them in the game for too long, because like in my position, like I don't want to get down to a final vote with them still in the game, because if they're too enticing to take, like you don't want to necessarily leave it up to a competition. Right. Yeah. And granted, even if they're on your side, they're too enticing for the like whatever other player is in the game to take to the end for an instant win. So I'm hesitant to keep those types of people in for too long, because they scare me. They scare me because they're too easy.
I was surprised that, like, coming down to my vote, that I was one of the people that they wanted out, because I think that, I mean, I get it, obviously, but I also think that in a different strategic path, a lot of them probably could have taken me and won, because I was like a freshman who I played an okay game towards the end. I got better for sure. But I don't think I played a good enough game that like people would choose me over Big H or Anissa, or even, like, I think people would choose Marlon over me. I think people would choose Zach over me. I think people would choose Jackie over me. And so it was looking back and now having watched a few seasons of Survivor, like, I mean, I've seen 2. So the only one I can really talk about is spoilers for Cagayan. The Woo Tony vote. Mm-hmm. I feel like in that situation, I'm the Woo, where I'm just like kind of dicking around, having a good time. I made a few moves, but like I also didn't. And but anyone who made it better,
Woo could have won. If he took Cass, he would have.
Oh, yes, obviously. Taking Tony was the worst decision ever. Not like Tony.
As a Woo fan, my heart shattered that night.
I loved him.
I think you're being too hard on yourself. I think if you're up there against Marlon or Jackie, you have a fighting chance.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
I mean,
Yeah, and I know you haven't seen her seasons, but I see you almost as more of like a Michelle Fitzgerald, and that like a very compelling, like social player who is able to like navigate through these games based off of like relationships and having like the strategic mind to back it up, which I think is like really, really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like the way you had this arc from starting out, you come in knowing nothing and you're picking it up as you go along. You're struggling with the lying, but you had this quote that I absolutely resonated with, where you're like, there's a difference between like outright betraying someone and being tricksy with it, right? And I'm like, yes, there is an art to it. Mm-hmm. And I think you were really like, I think it was when you were talking to Marlon and you were like, yeah, I talked to somebody, but I didn't really talk to them a whole lot or something. And it's just like, really, your conversations with Marlon really were so fascinating. But the way you were able to navigate those conversations, especially as a freshman, as someone who didn't know anything about Survivor, someone who, by all rights, was going to be the first person voted out, like, you could have made a really good case for yourself.
Thank you.
And I was so close to making my winner pick because I was like, I see this story waiting to happen, and so
it would have been a good story.
It would have been
a good story.
awesome.
And then I went home with an idol, and I feel like we got to talk about that now.
Well, let's talk about the other person who went home with an idol first. Let's talk about Swatha and that round. So that round I felt like was a defining round because it really showed where people's cards were a bit. Did you have a sense of where people were at in the game by that point? By the time the votes are tentatively going on Zach, and then they ended up going on Swatha?
I knew where we stood. I for sure knew where we stood of like being in the minority. What I did not know was Zach, you're my friend. You're my best friend. I love you to death. The stuff he pulled with those idols was crazy. It was nuts. I never knew what he was going to do because he told me he had the idol, but he didn't tell me what he was going to do with it ever. And so I definitely knew we were on the outs, but when he stood up, this is like my biggest regret in life. Like all of my 21 years is this moment. When he stood up and was like, I have the idol. I will be playing it. Here you go. And then I heard Anissa behind me whisper to Hallie, Swatha. We're going to do Swatha. Yeah. And I heard it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I guess I didn't think enough of it. Or, I mean, I didn't really know what I could have done with that information because Charlie and Jake were pretty strict in tribals where we like don't talk. We either don't talk or we don't talk about the game. Or it's like, I went to Double Chin the other day and saw a rat, you know? But like we talk about something random. But I didn't really know what to do with the information. And I bet I could have whispered to Zach, like, play it on Swatha, they're gonna do Swatha. But I didn't actually believe they would. Oh, it was just like the worst.
Because you heard Anissa whisper.
No, I know I did. And I don't know if I didn't think that it would actually like work out. I also didn't know that she was the one like running the game, that they're all going to listen to her. Because I was like, maybe this is just like something random and like they're not going to do it. But also I was, I don't know. It's like if you look at my face right after that, I mean, I know it was so apparent. I was livid. I was so angry because that was that was what I mean about the betraying someone versus being like tricksy about it.
Yeah.
That one felt like just a flat out like murder. It felt like just stabbed in the back. Swatha didn't do anything for that. She didn't have to go through like the stress of having her name on the block and have people talking about like it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And the challenge we filmed right after that, because we would do tribal and then challenge for the next week, was the superlatives of like most likely to whatever. I am sitting on the edge of that like line, just like fuming. I'm smoking out of my ears, and it's like, who do you think would do that? And I'm like, Carly, Marlon.
Yeah.
I hate this. I want to go home. You didn't deserve that. Like I was so absolutely angry, and that was really when I started to like lose faith in the game, where I was like, this isn't maybe something I want to be a part of. It doesn't feel fun anymore. It feels mean.
Yeah, and that was something I was hoping we could get to is like, I know like on my season when I played, I went through a similar situation. I had some pretty crazy emotional stuff going through my life. How is it for you navigating clearly a fraught emotional environment, not only in this instance, but just in the game, especially with like, these are people who are friends with each other, and then you're making these friends, and then you have to vote them out, and you know things get said, and
it was rough because I think that a big difference from like normal Survivor is you go to that island in normal Survivor and you know that you're playing a game. And I think that makes you able to be friends outside. Like I would die for Boston Rob just in general, obviously. But I also love him and Parvati's relationship where it's like they weren't super friends in their game, but they're like really good friends outside the game because I stalk Boston Rob on Instagram. I love him. But it was rough in this with it being so intertwined with life that a lot of those people that I didn't have the best relationship with in the game, I don't have the best relationship with in real life. And that makes me sad. Like after the Madison vote, we would see each other on the street and we wouldn't talk. Like we wouldn't smile or I don't talk to Carly very often. I don't talk to Max. I don't talk to Anissa. And that makes me sad because especially looking back and being like, these are really cool people. And I was thrust into such a high emotion scenario with them that I found it unable to be separated into like going to the DH and seeing Anissa versus being in a challenge with Anissa. And that makes me sad because I really do genuinely like all the people that I played with. And I wish that I had better relationships with some of them or relationships at all with some of them, especially people who got off earlier from Katai who I just never knew. But then on the other side, my relations with people like Swetha, like Zach, like Big H. Honestly, Big H and I are pretty close. Like those are I'm so grateful for. I am so grateful for those kind of because it's like collective trauma kind of thing of you brings you together real fast.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So that for you, Brian.
Yeah, it's fascinating because like you desperately want to believe what people are telling you is true. And because you could book a study room for an hour and for the first half hour, you're talking, like in my case, I could be talking to like Sarah from Survivor Boston. And then next half hour, I'm doing a study sesh with my roommate. And it's like, those are two totally different worlds in the same like 10 by 10 room. And to like have to totally switch your brain into like different, not only like conversations and mindsets, but almost characters of like you're playing yourself like while studying with someone, but also like you're kind of playing a version of yourself while also trying to like navigate strategically and socially with someone you're playing a game with who also happens to be in your psychology 101 class, but also happens to be playing the game you're in. And it's like such a weird, but also like fascinating dynamic that you don't really get like outside of College Survivor.
Yeah, it's a trip.
I think that's how I describe it. Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine because like when I play these weekend long games, if I don't end up being friends with somebody, it's like okay, well we probably live somewhere different anyway, and we don't run into each other every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Like when I played Survivor Buffaloes, like I was going into it thinking like this is so different from Michigan. Like we're all going to be from totally different places. If I come out of it not being friends with people, I come out of it not being friends with people. But then it's like I don't know, Nathan, you had the same experience. Excuse me, you had the same experience, but like then you really do become friends with people, even if it's even a shorter thing. And so I think one of the greatest things about these games, whether they're long form or short form, is, they can be hell, but they can bring us a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I feel like my Survivor Boston origin story that Jacob and Charlie make fun of me for all the time. I'm in the elevator with Stuart, who at the time was my roommate. Yeah. And I'm like leaning against the corner saying something along the lines of like, oh, well, sometimes you have to like lie to your friends in order to like get far in these games. And then it pans to Stuart and they're like, what do you mean? And then they end up going home like that first survival. And it like sets the whole course for me like the rest of the game. But at the same time, like that's not at all like who I am like at Emerson. Like if I was in the elevator with Stuart, I would probably be talking about like pentatonics or something like that. But like in a game setting, it totally shifts, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have Jacob in the chat saying Swetha's boot was wild.
Yes, it was.
And Anna, your breakout confessional was amazing.
Yes. Throw away the rose-colored glasses.
That one where in pre-merge where you're like, I'm fed up with this. I'm tired of being
that was a fun time. And I remember that's the episode where my friends and I would read the comments every episode, obviously. And they would just like scroll and look right at Anna. And for a lot of them, there were just no Annas. Or it'd be like, Anna's going home next week. And that first comment on that episode where I'm like, I'm done being everyone's pawn. The first comment was like, me, a Stana? Who would have guessed? And I was
I love it. Anna, yes.
people like me. So I really liked that confessional too. That felt like a narrative shifting point, which was fun to like look back and be like, no, that's how I felt. And I just hit record and that was cool.
So I want to talk about the following round after Swatha leaves. So Anissa and Big H come to you to work together to vote out Carly.
Is that what happened? Wait, I don't remember that. Wait, who went home after Swatha?
After Swatha, it was Carly.
Well, wasn't that because people wanted to vote Zach, but then he pulled some shit again?
I'm looking at my notes. They're not well organized. What episode was that?
The most recent one, or second recent one.
Because I remember that Zach was able to do like 2 big things with his idol. Was that the one where he gave it to me or no?
That was the one where he gave it away.
Yeah, that was the one where he gave it to you in episode 10.
So people were assuming he was going to play it.
Yeah. And was that the one where
that's
Zach
the one? Oh, that's the one where you end up doing your ruse to convince Anissa that you and Zach aren't close.
Yeah,
which I thought was incredibly like a smart plan.
Oh, 100%.
Thank you.
It just got bungled up by Zach. You did everything right, to your credit.
Thank you. I mean, that week was crazy because I was like, I need to keep Zach. They're gonna vote Zach. He has the idol, but then he's just gone next time. So we came up with this convoluted plan of like, if I say that we flush the idol, we'll actually be able to vote someone out and keep the idol. That was Zach and I's biggest downfall. We were always focused on keeping the idol. And like, that is not, idols are meant to be played.
Yeah.
And we were so outnumbered that I understand why like old us wanted to do that. But it turned out to be a downfall of mine. And I think Zach and I had talked about, because we were texting during that episode, and he was like, they didn't include any of our planning for me giving you the idol. Like they made us look like idiots or whatever. Not actually, like no harm to the editors. We were just dicking around. But I forgot that like we did have a conversation where if he played the idol on me, like gave it to me, it would like seal the concrete of he trusts me.
Yeah.
Even though I'm on the outs with him and like I'm going over to Anissa. But it didn't come across that way. It was just messed up in translation where like Anissa immediately was like, well, he must really like you. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the point. That's why we talked about it. It was like, he likes me and I don't like him. So we can use this idol ourselves. I'm on your team now, but like not actually. Mm-hmm. And it just got so just bungled up and confusing. And then Anissa was like, don't take it. And I was like, why wouldn't I take it? He's given it to me. Yeah. And then she's like, why would you give it back? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe I won't. It was just like the shock on my face is half like pretend because I knew he was going to give it to me, and half this is not going right. Everything is falling apart. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. I mean, it worked because he didn't go home.
Yeah, you didn't go home either.
And I didn't go home either.
Yeah.
We somehow were able to get Carly out, which was a crazy thing, but it was a mess. It was a mess of a time.
Did you ever think about maybe using the info that they were going after Carly to bring that to Carly and try to get your original tribe back together?
And no, I think at that point I kind of knew that she was so tight with them because we had been so exclusionary in the beginning. That we had lost her in that. And I think she would have seen right through any attempt of being like, old Fatia. She'd be like, fuck off. You guys were never.
Well, that's why you bring the info that.
That's true. I don't know.
Drive a wedge through that.
I think that's
that would have been a strategy.
I mean, everything's a risk, but like, I think there's a point to where I think Zach was saying it. It's like, I never really have had a strategic relationship with like Anissa or Marlon because like I haven't needed to, right? Yeah. And I think there's a threshold where it's like, at what point do you go like, hey, sorry I haven't like reached out to you at all when it hasn't really been super beneficial. Like I've been there, right? It's like there's a threshold, and it's like at what point is it disingenuous? And so you
I
always
think
have
we
to
have
toe
come to
that
the
line.
point where I would have considered it disingenuous, especially because I
Yeah.
tried to play so much of my game sincerely, because that was important to me as like
Right.
me being me. That I would have felt gross going to them being like, I want to work with you now. It's like, well, no, you
Yeah.
don't. Like, obviously. But
It's funny too, because in general, like scheduling meetings is awkward. Like
Hard.
it's so awkward in these games because especially for people that might live off campus, being like, hey, can I like take this, you want to take this 30-minute train to my house, like to like talk for like an hour? And
for sure.
it's tough because like to find that balance of you've been playing for like however many months, and then to kind of like build new relationships, like not only in a game sense, but in like a student to student, person to person sense, is difficult to navigate, but also can be like super fun to just be in the dining hall being like, hey, want to like eat lunch together today and just like try and spark something new.
Yeah, that's true. I will never forget that moment of Zach and I in the Max filming about Anissa, and then both of us going, Anissa, hi.
So funny.
Both of our faces like, oh my gosh. That was
We
I
were
remember
just talking about you. Definitely not in a like we are threatened by you sense.
Anna, coming
man.
into this episode, most recent episode, what did you think the makeup of the tribe was? Where do you think people stood?
Me and Zach, Anissa, Big H, Hallie, Marlon and Jackie in the middle. That's what I would say. I was pretty confident we could do Jack. We could get Jackie, and then Marlon was somewhere in the middle. Was that everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Marlon was somewhere in the middle. I would think. Watching this week's episode and seeing how things shook out and seeing that they were splitting the vote, and I think we knew that. It rang a bell that we had known that, because I think we did know that we only needed 3 to win. So I think someone must have told us that they were splitting the vote. I don't know why they did that. I was watching it and I still don't understand why they did that, because they fully had the numbers to just boot one of us out.
Yeah.
And I know we had the idol, but like still. And then it really was just, it came down to me trusting Jackie that she was going to vote Marlon and it was going to work. But when I was rewatching it, I really was struck with how I think Marlon put himself into a bad position. I think since Zach and I were so on the outs, Marlon must have some idea, and this is just my thinking, this is in no way spoilers for the next episodes. I honestly don't really remember how they shake out. But in like the web of Anissa, Big H, Hallie, who are all old Katai, and Jackie also, Marlon, I feel like, should feel like he's on the bottom. And since Zach and I are in such a precarious position, I think it would have aided him to come back and be like, okay, now's the time we move forward together, because the minute that they're in a precarious position, I'm out, you know?
Right.
And I think if that would have happened, it would have been a very different game. But in the end, it really came down to Zach and I had freaked ourselves out about what would happen next week if we didn't have the idol. Freaked ourselves out so much that I felt like I needed to keep it. I needed to hold on to it. And then also, I really, really believed Jackie when she said she was going to vote with us. And when she didn't, I was pretty sad. I was like, oh, I wish that you had, because I did see the 3 of us like going. That would be the top 3 that I would have wanted. And so it was sad that she made that decision to go on the other side instead of make that flip then. Because I think if Jackie had flipped and Marlon had flipped, it would have been a very different game.
Yes. And I think to your credit, like you had the necessary inroads with Jackie and Marlon. And like you had told Marlon, like, hey, like Anissa and Big H were kind of the ones who did this to Carly, I think, right? And it's like, and you know, and it's like, yeah, why I feel like it would have been totally logical for them. Like Jackie had the relationship with like Zach and had the relationship with you, to where it could have worked, but it didn't.
But it didn't. And I mean, it's funny to think about what would happen the next episode had I played it and had who would have gone home? Marlon? Or
It would have been a tie in that case.
Yeah.
I just like, okay, Anna, what were you thinking not playing it? Okay, because here's the thing. Here's the realty. Like, if you're thinking about it this way, okay, if you have Jackie, assuming you have Jackie, then if the vote goes your way, you still have Jackie. But if you don't, you're out of the game. So why not just play your idol, and then you at least have the numbers going into the following week? But you didn't even run the numbers!
You knew they were...
I was like, what are you doing? The numbers make all the sense to play your idol this week! This is the week to play it! Okay, I was shouting at the screen when you didn't do it.
We're still sad.
Nathan, I wish I could tell you. I wish I knew. I wish I could go back and be like, girl, what are you doing? Actually, what I really wish I did is I wish I had like the most... I was looking for my idol because I know I kept it, but I couldn't find it. But I wish I like had the most dramatic moment of like, if anyone wants to play an idol, play it now. Stand up with the idol, turn around, hand it to Zach, like give him a kiss on the forehead and whisper, "You have to win," and just like disappear. I wish I had one of those endings of like do it for him.
Lauren in the chat says Anna's never living going home with an idol down.
all my friends are like, what are you doing? And I don't know. I really don't know. And I think it comes down to the fact that I wanted to trust them so badly. Yeah. I really wanted them to be telling me the truth. I really wanted them to be doing what I think they thought they were doing.
Yeah, this is just like your definitive numbers week. This is the week where either you have numbers for the rest of the game or you don't. And this is the week to take out a for sure number no matter what.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try to defend myself. It was a dumb mistake. Like, it was not a good move. But Swathe actually sent me a screenshot of a group text with her, Charlie, and Jacob, where right after Swathe went home, she was like, only the coolest people go home with idols. And they were like, you're right, you and Anna. And I was like, I'm down.
There you go.
Like, that works for me. I'm happy with that.
Jacob in the chat says it wasn't that bad if she would have survived if Anissa didn't flip her vote at Tribal. Did Anissa flip her vote?
Yeah,
Anissa voted for Anna.
Yeah. She was going to do a different flip vote, I think, but she switched. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for defending my honor.
Rewinding a little bit, how did those sardines taste in the food competition?
Horrible. And also, it was so funny with Anissa being like, I'm vegan, and everyone else being like, I'm vegetarian. I was vegetarian at that point. Yeah. I didn't say shit about it. I was like, this is why I'm here. Yeah. I guess it's time to eat the fish for the first time in 10 years, you know?
You didn't try the preserved duck egg.
Yeah, no.
That was where I drew the line. I drew the line. Yeah. And if it had been against someone who wasn't Zach, I might have gone a little bit more. Yeah. But since it was going to be either me or Zach, I was like,
no.
Son, you got
that was your, like, fading into the mist moment. I
love the clip of me, like, cracking open and looking at it and being like,
yeah, you just like wait a second while Zach's just like, I'm just like, oh man.
I just like wonder where do you buy something like that? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, it is funny too because on like the show, like in Survivor, it's like not only like when they do these food challenges, which they don't really do too much anymore, but like you weren't eating very much, so it's like this is kind of like a reward because you have like you're eating a little bit more. But then at Emerson's, like I'm immediate, like I just ate. Like I'm going.
I can go get fries right now. Yeah. Like I don't need the anchovies or sardines.
I was like, I remember before a challenge, I was like, okay, I'm not really going to eat anything in case there's like something that's going to be eating, or like I have to run. And it's like, it's crazy how like the food situation was almost like I don't want to eat instead of Survivor, where it's like I do want to eat.
Yeah, true. You said run, and I just got thrown back to the pacer test. I forgot. We
Oh,
skipped over
no.
that.
You,
We
you
just
did well
all
in the paper.
know-
Well, first in the chat, we have Phoebe says you could find them at the Chinese grocery if you
There
want
you
your
go.
preserved eggs.
There you
And
go.
Anissa said they knew there were vegans and vegetarians on cast.
Yes, that's so true. A lot of
Yeah.
us were. It was a pretty heavy vegan vegetarian cast.
And you, so yeah, you did really well in the pacer test.
Thank you.
Bravo. I would have been first out.
You were
I
5
think-
or 4 or something in the pacer test.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I came in fourth.
Yeah, I think you were fourth. It was like you, Marlon, Anissa, and Big H, I want to say.
Mhm. Which honestly, against those three,
Yeah.
Anissa plays like crazy lacrosse, and the other two are just strong and large. And I mean, also Anissa's super strong. I was happy with that. I was like, I'll take that. The pacer test was the one thing I was competitive about in like school because I don't like competition. That's why I'm an actor. Like I never did sports. That was never my thing. But in school, I'd be like, I am going to be the last girl standing if it kills me. And I think I got like shot back into that mindset of like, I need to do well. And then it was so sad because Zach runs cross country and that was the one challenge he couldn't do. And he probably would have won it because he's like a crazy cross country runner. So sad.
Anna, would you play a live reality game again? Or Survivor Boston if they had an all-stars somehow?
I knew this question was coming. And I'm afraid I think the answer is no. I learned a lot. I think it'd be a very different game. I think it'd be a little bit, oh my gosh. You know in the Hunger Games, you know in the second one with the quarter quell where they come back, the victors come back, and you know Joanna Mason, she's the one with the axe. Her whole backstory, I used to love the Hunger Games. Her whole backstory is she won by pretending to be like super duper weak, and then at the end, like Final Four, she just killed everyone with an axe. Not saying that that's what I did, but I feel like if I tried to play again, I wouldn't be able to slide with any like, I don't know what I'm doing act. Like I'd have to play a very different, much more offensive game and much more alliance-based game. And honestly, that sounds like hell. That sounds so stressful.
Yeah.
So not what I need right now. I mean, I would love to like be a part of it. I think I would love to like be around it on the outside when I'm not able to be stressed out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lauren says, Anna the axe murderer.
No, I don't think it's for me. A lot of my friends now want to play it, which is cool, but I don't think it's for me.
I would
I'm
love
happy
to see
with
you
my
play
time
again.
Yeah.
I think you'd be great on a second run through of any live reality game.
Thank you.
I gotta tell you, from a production standpoint, and like this little like inside info, because Charlie and Jacob like put their heart and soul into editing the show, and one of them lives right next to me, and one of them lives below me, and so I sit in the middle and listen to them like talking about how we're gonna edit like certain things, or like can we use this confessional here, and like talking about all the logistics of like where they can literally place things in the show. And with you, it was always it's like, oh, we like. We have to cut some of this down because all of it's so good to use. So I think like with you in particular, like if you were to play another live game again, which I hope you do, because you're like confessionals and just everything, you're able to like encompass your whole story so well within them, then they're gonna have like no trouble putting you in for like whatever.
Thank you. That was actually one of my favorite things that Jacob ever said to me. After we filmed the finale, we were all like celebrating and we were cheering and everything. And we were like, Jacob, do like most likely to, or whatever, like do like some superlatives. And mine was most likely to get every single thing right in her confessional. Jacob said, I would go confessional and I would go, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this person's going to vote this way, and this person's going to vote with this way, and this person's going to go home. And then Jacob would be like, yeah, then that happened. And that was just funny. And that was like such a big compliment for me. But then it's funny that I went home in such a freaking stupid way. The one time I needed to see the future, I didn't.
Oh, well, you did have a lot of really good takes in there.
You did.
So at the end of our episodes, we tend to go through predictions. Austin, what do you think is going to happen in our final 6? We only have 6 people left. Is next week the finale?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, we have a few more.
A few more. Okay.
I know Jacob and Charlie sent us the schedule, but I don't remember it.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
I'm not the person to know things either.
Yeah. To be honest, I mean, this is where Anissa's idol, I think, turns into her actual like idol becomes a real idol for like one round. So that's big. Zach no longer has protection unless he wins, so that's also big.
Sorry, Zach.
I mean, the whole Big H starting to get paranoid, and like he was kind of his vengeance for Anthony to vote out Carly, and now the whole like we need to split on Zach, and then in the confessional with Anissa, Jacob's like, Zach's immune, right? And so it's like that can be like we could see like maybe is Anissa going to turn on Big H? Is Big H going to turn on Anissa? What's Jackie going to do? Because she's kind of got a relationship with everyone, and she's been kind of like floating, but actually like kind of picking her battles. And then you've got Hallie, where I don't know what's going to happen. She's going to stay loyal to Katai, or is she just going to like emerge out of her, I don't know, like cocoon of niceness and just like Johanna Mason-ness and like wreck everybody? I don't know. And that's why I'm so excited, because like my favorite thing about Survivor when it happens is when you get a season where like you can see everybody making it to the end and everybody winning, right? And like some configuration, even like, Hallie, who you might say like, I mean, she's not really doing a whole lot. I feel like there's potentially a chance if she's sitting next to the right people, maybe, who knows? There's still, with 6 people left and a final 2, there's 4 more rounds. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of jury management that needs to happen on everybody's count. And I mean, you've got like Marlon, who, I had Marlon set my number 3 spot, so I'm going to see if he does that. I had Zach as my winner pick, so I'm really hyped. He's made it this far. I'm sad Anna can't complete the trifecta, but we got there, got close enough.
Close enough, honestly.
I mean, so I think it's going to be a rip-roaring finale. I can't wait to see how these last few episodes pan out.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously Zach doesn't look like he's in a good spot, but he's also the second most game savvy person after Anissa. Yeah. So
my roommates have deemed Zach the Spencer from Cagayan.
Yeah. He's kind of in that role. And so I could see Zach surviving next episode, like if Marlon goes home, or for some reason Anissa and Big H decide to turn on each other, or Jackie. I don't know. I don't see that happening. But I think Zach needs to win immunity. Otherwise, I think it's Zach or Marlon. I don't have a lot of faith in Zach making it another round.
I think it's probably like Zach or Big H, as much as I don't want it to be either of them. I don't want it to be anybody, but that's a problem that you have to deal with in Survivor. So I don't know. I'm just excited to see. I feel like I'd be really happy whoever wins. So I think that's another really good sign of just a strong cast and a strong season. So
we have Jacob calling a Jackie or Big H win.
Yeah.
And so we have an episode this Thursday, again on the 28th, and then another episode on February 4th. Sorry, right, February 4th. Or no, I'm looking at a different, But he said no episode on the 9th.
The 9th.
It's on our fridge, so I should.
It's on your fridge. Very good. That's the place to put
Those are Tuesdays. Okay. Well, yeah, so we have a few more episodes before the finale. Yeah, he was like reading Tuesdays. Jacob, you have the wrong days on your schedule you're giving in the comments. Showrunner, get it together. Okay. Episodes are on Thursdays, so that's coming up soon. If you can want to see more live reality game podcasts, you can follow us subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, all that good stuff. Okay, the 18th of February is the finale.
There you go.
Good job, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob.
That's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
I'm so excited, and we know when there's a final 2 now.
Yeah.
So
if you didn't already catch the very overt, reference at the merge, I thought that was so funny. Where everyone's like, "Wait, it's a final 2?" And I'm like, "No."
So and Brian, thank you so much for being with us. It is awesome having you. And Anna,
Yeah,
thank you as well.
Thank you. This is very fun.
Okay, we're going to peace out now. See y'all next week.